In the quaint town of Canton, New York, a chilling crime sent shockwaves through the community in September 2015. The brutal murder of 35-year-old Kelly Clayton left her two young children, Cullen and Charlie, without a mother, and her husband, Thomas, reeling in grief. Kelly's death was a senseless act of violence that would forever change the lives of those who knew her. Thomas Clayton, a former hockey player, had traded in his skates for a successful business career. He had played for the Elmira Jackal hockey team as a forward, a position that required skill, strategy, and physical prowess. After hanging up his hockey gear, Thomas had built a thriving business empire, owning a franchise of Paul Davis Emergency Services of the Southern Tier, a fire and water damage restoration firm. He later became a project manager at Serpro, a similar franchise owned by his longtime friend and fellow Binghamton native, Michael Beard. Michael, a laborer and acquaintance of Thomas, had worked for him at Paul Davis and also rented an apartment in the village of Elmira Heights, owned by Thomas. This familiarity with Thomas's property would later become a crucial piece of the puzzle. Michael had often helped Thomas with odd jobs around his house, and the two had developed a cordial relationship. However, their friendship would soon be put to the test as the investigation into Kelly's murder unfolded. On that fateful night, Thomas's life was about to take a devastating turn. He had arrived home from a poker game, looking forward to a peaceful evening with his family. Instead, he found his wife lying in a pool of blood in the kitchen. The sight was gruesome, and Thomas's world came crashing down around him. He made a frantic 911 call, his voice shaking with fear and desperation. "My wife is dead. She's not breathing. Please hurry." The sound of Thomas's voice still haunts the investigators who answered the call. Deputy Swan, a seasoned officer with years of experience, was the first to arrive at the scene. He found Thomas kneeling beside Kelly's body, his face etched with grief and shock. The officer's body cam captured the gruesome scene, a sight that would haunt him forever. Kelly's body lay on the kitchen floor, a trail of blood leading from the bedroom, telling a tale of unimaginable violence. The walls, once a testament to the family's happiness, now bore the scars of a brutal attack. The kitchen, once filled with the aroma of freshly baked cookies and the sound of laughter, was now a crime scene, a reminder of the senseless violence that had taken Kelly's life. The investigators worked tirelessly to gather evidence, taking note of every detail, no matter how small. They found broken objects scattered around the house, frames smashed to the ground, and a large dent in the wall at the foot of the staircase. The attack appeared to be well documented by the damage and blood splatter. Kelly would have been in bed in the upper bedroom when the commotion started. The blood trail led from the bedroom to the kitchen, where Kelly's body was found. The investigators knew that they had to work quickly to find the killer, as the trail of evidence was still fresh. As the investigation continued, Thomas became a person of interest. His alibi for the time of the murder was shaky at best, and the investigators found inconsistencies in his story. Thomas claimed to have been at a poker game at a friend's house, but the friend later told the police that Thomas had left early, around 10 p.m. Thomas said he had arrived home around 10:30 p.m., but the 911 call was made at 10:45 p.m. The investigators knew that they had to question Thomas further, but he was cooperative, at least initially. The search for the murder weapon continued, and the investigators found a few leads, but nothing concrete. They searched the house, the yard, and the surrounding areas, but the weapon remained elusive. The autopsy report revealed that Kelly had died from blunt force trauma to the head, and the investigators knew that they were looking for a weapon with a heavy, blunt surface. As the days passed, the investigation continued, with the police working tirelessly to find the killer. Thomas's behavior became increasingly suspicious, and the investigators knew that they had to keep a close eye on him. The community was in shock, and the police were determined to find the person responsible for Kelly's murder. Little did they know that the killer was hiding in plain sight, waiting for the perfect moment to strike again. As the investigation continued, Deputy Swan and his team methodically cleared the house, room by room. "We got to clear this house. Just cover me. I'm going to go upstairs. I gotta go up," he instructed his team. The kids' rooms were first, and they found bloodstains on the floor. "Kids' rooms, this one's clear. Trying not to step on anything." "Okay, clear." The team moved cautiously, aware that the killer might still be lurking. As they reached the garage, They noticed an intact side door sitting wide open, but there was no sign of forced entry. Thomas Clayton's gambling habits were evident in the abundance of cash in the house, yet his safes remained unopened. The responding law enforcement officials initially thought they were dealing with a murder case, but as they approached Thomas, they noticed something odd. "Tom, hold up your hands. Let's see if there are any wounds," they asked. But there were no wounds, no blood on him anywhere. The investigation intensified, with K-9 units searching the home and its surroundings. They directed their attention to a pond at the back of the property, skimming and then emptying it to collect evidence. Several agencies joined the case, led by Captain Eric Tyner of the Steuben County Sheriff's Office. Through interviews with Kelly's friends and family, they discovered that she was having trouble with her husband, Thomas Clayton, and was considering a divorce. Thomas was taken in for questioning, but there was another crucial witness, 7-year-old Charlie, who had been at home during the attack. She described the assailant as having eyes like her dad's and wearing a mask and jeans. In a second police interview at the Chemung County Child Advocacy Center, Charlie provided more details, aligning with the evidence inside the house. A brutal struggle had started in the bedroom and escalated downstairs to the kitchen. The young girl's statement seemed to verify what officers at the scene had suspected. Thomas Clayton was responsible for his wife's murder. Although not a firm idea, the police took Charlie's statement as confirmation and probable cause. After several hours of questioning, they arrested Thomas Clayton for second-degree murder on October 2, 2015. The investigation had unraveled a web of secrets and lies, revealing a shocking truth that would shake the community to its core. Thomas Clayton, a man who had once seemed like a loving husband and father, had been hiding a dark secret. His gambling habits and troubled marriage had led him down a dangerous path, one that ended in the brutal murder of his wife, Kelly. As the town of Canton struggled to come to terms with the tragedy, the police worked tirelessly to ensure that justice would be served. As the investigation into Kelly Clayton's murder continued, detectives were determined to uncover the motive behind Thomas Clayton's brutal actions. Despite his arrest, many pieces of the puzzle remain missing. Friends and family described the couple's relationship as happy and loving, with Kelly often expressing gratitude for her marriage. However, a different story emerged from Kelly's 16-year-old niece, who had worked for Thomas at Serpro that summer. She revealed that Thomas had confided in her about his unhappiness in his marriage, admitting to multiple affairs and a desire to divorce Kelly, but feared losing everything. As investigators questioned more of Thomas's friends and colleagues, a similar narrative unfolded. Multiple women came forward, claiming to have had sexual relationships with Thomas, who complained about Kelly, calling her lazy, ungrateful, and worse. Cell phone records showed that even as Thomas exchanged loving texts with Kelly just days before her murder, he was also communicating with these women. The investigation now had a clear motive: a domestic dispute gone too far, fueled by Thomas's desire for freedom and financial gain. The life insurance policy he had taken out on Kelly, doubled in the months leading up to her murder, stood to pay out $1 million. As Thomas Clayton was interrogated, he maintained an alibi, claiming to have been at a friend's house for a weekly poker game. However, a crucial piece of information came yet again from Kelly's niece. She mentioned Michael Beard, a former employee of Thomas's who had been fired recently. Investigators discovered that Michael had been stealing from homes while working at Serpro and was facing eviction from his home, owned by none other than Thomas Clayton. Michael was brought in for questioning and initially claimed no ill will toward Thomas. However, after his wife, Polly, spoke with investigators and Michael failed a polygraph test, his story began to unravel. It turned out that Thomas had borrowed a woman's cell phone to make a call just 90 minutes before discovering Kelly's body. A call placed to Michael Beard. Michael's partner revealed that the couple had fought that night, and Michael had left around 11:30 p.m., returning an hour and a half later. Confronted with the evidence, Michael confessed to entering the Claytons' house that night with the intention of burning it down. He had a set of keys and used them to enter through the side door, planning to use gas canisters in the garage to set the house ablaze. However, when he surprised Kelly in the bedroom, a bloody fight ensued, and Michael lost his nerve, fleeing the scene. The investigation had finally pieced together the events of that fateful night, revealing a web of deceit, betrayal, and violence that had led to Kelly Clayton's tragic murder. Thomas Clayton's desire for freedom and wealth had driven him to orchestrate a brutal crime, using his former employee Michael Beard to carry out the deed. As the truth came to light, the community was left reeling in shock and disbelief. How could a man who appeared to be a loving husband and father commit such a heinous crime? The investigation had uncovered a sinister plot, revealing the dark secrets that lay beneath the surface of the Claytons' seemingly happy marriage. In the end, justice was served, and Thomas Clayton was held accountable for his crimes. The case served as a stark reminder that appearances can be deceiving, and that the truth can be far more sinister than we ever imagine. As Michael Beard fled the Claytons' house, leaving Kelly's lifeless body on the kitchen floor, he abandoned his initial plan to set the house ablaze. The investigation took a crucial turn with Michael's arrest and the discovery of his DNA inside the house. The bloodstains on the doorway to Charlie's room revealed that Michael was present at the time of the murder, corroborating his confession. The police searched 2 locations, covertly scouring East 14th Street and Hall Street in Elmira, using a metal detector to uncover evidence. They retrieved a small object from the Bush-Off State Route 225, which matched a piece found at the crime scene, the yellow handle of a maul. Michael's co-worker identified the handle as belonging to a maul that had broken earlier at the Claytons' property. Further investigation led to the discovery of a bag containing Michael's clothing, stained with Kelly's blood, in a swampy location. Keys to the house were retrieved from a shallow creek, and Mark Blandford, Michael's accomplice, came forward to corroborate Michael's confession. Mark claimed he was unaware of the plan and was instructed to keep watch outside while Michael carried out the crime. As the evidence mounted against Michael Beard, a curious detail emerged from Linda Miller, a friend of Thomas Clayton's. On the night of Kelly's murder, Thomas had borrowed Linda's phone to make a call, claiming his cell phone was left in his van. However, Linda noticed that Thomas had muffled the conversation and deleted the call history from her phone. Moreover, the other poker players that night confirmed that Thomas had his cell phone with him at the table all night, raising suspicions about his motives. Linda's call records revealed that Thomas had dialed 2 numbers from her cell phone. The first was the fax machine, a single-digit variation of Michael Beard's phone number, and the second call was connected to Michael Beard himself. Extensive forensic analysis of the crime scene, including blood spatters and prints, further implicated Thomas Clayton in the murder plot. Investigators discovered that Thomas had hired Michael Beard to carry out the crime, and they had communicated through texts, calls, and emails on the day of the murder. The shocking truth finally came to light. Thomas Clayton, the grieving husband, had orchestrated his wife's brutal murder. The investigation had unraveled a complex web of deceit, revealing a sinister plot that had claimed Kelly's life. As justice was served, the community was left to grapple with the chilling reality that sometimes the most unsuspecting individuals can be capable of the most heinous crimes. Thomas Clayton's plan to cover his tracks was meticulous, but ultimately, it was his own undoing. He had purchased a throwaway phone to use during the crime and made internet searches on how to hire a hitman. Michael Beard, the man he had hired to carry out the murder, stood trial first. When Michael took the stand in his own defense, he testified that Thomas had hired him to commit the crime and paid him $10,000 for his services. He also admitted to striking Kelly with a baseball bat while Thomas waited in the car outside the home. However, Michael later recanted his confession, and the prosecution was left without a key witness. The state needed to show proof that Michael was hired by Thomas in some other way, but no money was ever exchanged. The $110,000 allegedly promised to Michael had never materialized, and no incriminating conversations between the 2 men were ever overheard. Text messages between them dealt with work-related topics, some of which were notably cryptic, but they did not confirm any agreement to murder Kelly. The prosecution called a former police officer who runs a business that uses software to aggregate data from multiple sources, such as GPS data, phone company records, and cell tower information, to track the whereabouts and movements of active cell phones at any given moment. Using that information, he made maps that depicted Michael's and Thomas's whereabouts on the days preceding the murder. Additionally, the information revealed that Michael departed his house just before 11 p.m. on September 28th, right after he received a phone call from Thomas during the poker game. GPS data also traced Thomas to a local business, M&M Auto, at about noon on the day leading up to the murder. He stopped in to use the business's phone, saying he was unable to get a signal on his cell phone. Records obtained from that business line showed a call to Michael was placed at that time, which lasted just over a minute. Security footage from Michael's apartment building and the Serve Pro parking lot began to fill in the gaps. Thomas had arranged to switch vehicles the day before the murder, and another employee, Luca Tattle, the same worker who identified the murder weapon, showed up at Thomas's house on Saturday in his red pickup truck to collect a four-wheeler for a weekend event on Monday. Thomas offered to swap trucks with Luca for the day, saying he would unload the four-wheeler at home and return Luca's truck the following day. Instead of unloading it from his truck to Thomas's Serve Pro surveillance footage conveniently revealed that Thomas had unloaded the four-wheeler at home, left the red pickup truck in the lot at around 6 o'clock, and then driven a Serve Pro truck to the poker session that evening. Following Thomas's phone call, Michael Beard left his house, rode a bicycle that Thomas had bought him to the Serve Pro lot, picked up Luca's red truck, and drove away. After dropping off Mark Bradford shortly after 12:30 a.m., security footage once more revealed Thomas's movements. Thomas's trial saw 75 witnesses, 400 pieces of evidence submitted by the prosecution, and 6 full weeks of testimony. It took the jury just 6 hours to reach a verdict. Thomas was convicted of first-degree murder. Thomas's defense team appeared shocked by the decision, continuing to insist that no concrete evidence existed to link Thomas to a plot to hire Michael Beard. His lawyer pointed to his polygraph test, which showed he was telling the truth about not being responsible for Kelly's death. However, the jury saw through the lies, and Thomas was sentenced to life in prison without parole. The murder of Kelly Clayton was a tragic and devastating event for her family and friends. She was a beloved mother, wife, and realtor known for her kindness, generosity, and strong work ethic. Her family and friends were shocked and saddened by her senseless murder. In the aftermath of the murder, Kelly's family released a statement expressing their grief and requesting privacy. "Our family is absolutely devastated by the loss of Kelly. She was a wonderful mother, an amazing wife, and a dear friend to so many. We appreciate all of the support we have received and ask that you please respect our privacy during this difficult time." Additionally, local community members and colleagues of Kelly's expressed their shock about her violent and brutal demise. They shared that Kelly was a respected and dedicated real estate agent for whom colleagues had high regard. They were devastated that she was taken away from them so abruptly. Since the conviction of Thomas Clayton and Michael Beard for the murder of Kelly Clayton, the family has not made many public statements. However, they did release a statement thanking the police and the prosecution for their efforts in bringing the perpetrators to justice. Thank you to the Steuben County Sheriff's Office and the District Attorney's Office for their tireless efforts in seeking justice for Kelly.